Welcome to another monthly portfolio update. If you are stopping by for the first time, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. In this video, I will share with you how much I invested in my taxable account in April, how many shares I bought, and the value of my portfolio at the end of April. But as always, before I continue, a quick disclaimer. The information that I'm sharing is not financial advice. Before you invest in anything, please do your own research and make sure that you only invest in things that you understand. With that being said, I will dive right into my portfolio update. I will start with a quick recap of my March portfolio to show you the value of the portfolio and how many shares I had before the beginning of April. The total value of my portfolio at the end of March was $84,043.21. $83,913.40 was the market value of my investments, and $129.81 was the cash amount. At the end of March, the total unrealized profit of my portfolio was at $21,466.02. This was plus 34.34%. These are my holdings, 2 Vanguard ETFs and 2 BlackRock ETFs. VCN is a Vanguard ETF that tracks the Canadian market. I had 106 shares of VCN at the end of March. VFV is a Vanguard ETF that tracks the S&P 500 index. This is the Canadian version of VOO. I had 304 shares of VFV at the end of March. XEQT is a BlackRock ETF. This is an all-in-one equity ETF which holds Canadian equities, US equities, developed market equities outside of North America, and emerging market equities. If you want to hold a single equity ETF which is globally diversified, you might consider looking into XEQT. I had 534 shares of XEQT at the end of March. XUU is a BlackRock ETF that tracks the US total stock market, and I had 288 shares of XUU at the end of March. I will now show you how much I invested in April and how many shares I bought. I bought 2 shares of VCN. The cost per share was $48.04. The total cost, $96.08. This is 3% of the amount that I invested in April. I bought 12 shares of VFV. The cost per share was $129.90. The total cost, $1,558.78. This is 57% of the amount that I invested in April. I bought 14 shares of XEQT. The cost per share was $31.91. The total cost, $446.68. This is 16% of the amount that I invested in April. I bought 12 shares of XUU. The cost per share was $53.81. The total cost, $645.74. And this is 24% of the amount that I invested in April. In total, I bought 40 shares, all the ETFs combined. And the amount that I invested in April was $2,747.28. This is $686.25 more than the amount that I invested in March. As you can see, in March, I invested $2,061.03, and in April, I invested $2,747.28. The difference is plus $686.25. The total value of my portfolio at the end of April was $83,470.28. $83,463.94 was the market value of my investments, and the $6.34 was the cash amount. At the end of April, the total unrealized profit of my portfolio was $18,203.86. This was plus 27.89%. As of April the 30th, I had 108 shares of VCN, 316 shares of VFV, 550 shares of XEQT, and 300 shares of XUU. Alright, let's now take a look at some quick details about each of the positions. I will start with VCN. The closing market price on April the 30th was $50.92. The quantity of shares that I had, 108. The average price, $41.44. The book value, which is how much I have invested in VCN, was $4,476.12. The market value was $5,499.36. This was 6.59% of my portfolio. The total unrealized profit for VCN was $1,023.24, or 22.86%. Next, we have VFV. The closing market price on April the 30th was $136.13. The quantity of shares that I had, 316. The average price, $103.81. The book value, $32,804.80. The market value was $43,017.08. This was 51.54% of my portfolio. The total unrealized profit for VFV was $10,212.28, or 31.13%. Then we have XEQT. The closing market price on April the 30th was $32.81. The quantity of shares that I had, 550. The average price, $26.73. The book value was $14,702.19. And the market value was $18,045.50. This was 21.62% of my portfolio. The total unrealized profit for XEQT was $3,343.31, or 22.74%. Finally, we have XUU. The closing market price on April the 30th was $56.34. The quantity of shares that I had, 300. The average price, $44.25. The book value was $13,276.97, and the market value was $16,902. This was 20.25% of my portfolio. The total unrealized profit for XOU was $3,625.03, or 27.30%. April was a wild month for the stock market. My portfolio went from being up 34.34% at the beginning of the month to just 27.89% at the end of the month. This is a decline of 6.45%, even though I invested $2,747.28 in April. Following Donald Trump's April the 2nd Liberation Day announcement, the S&P 500 index fell roughly 11% over just 4 trading days, from April the 3rd to April the 8th. This post-liberation downturn marked the 12th largest 4-day decline for the S&P 500 index since 1950. By April 8th, the S&P 500 was approaching bear market territory, which is defined as a 20% decline from its recent peak. However, what happened next was wild, or if you want, extraordinary. On April the 9th, the S&P 500 jumped 9.5%, one of its biggest single-day gains in 35 years. This pattern aligns with historical trends. Nearly half of the S&P 500's 100 best days since 1950 occurred within just 5 trading days of the worst ones. The S&P 500's April return was a loss of only 0.76%, which is quite remarkable after a month marked by such a wild ride for stocks. This shows how important it is for the long-term investor to stay the course and ignore the market short-term gyrations and events you have no control over. Long-term performance rests on time in the market, not market timing. During periods of heightened volatility, when investors' sentiment is most fragile, maintaining discipline and adhering to core investment principles is critical to capturing recovery and compounding returns. Alright, feel free to leave a comment below. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time with another update. Peace out.